Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we're going to be working again from This Will Make It Taste Good, Vivian Howard's book, where we sort of make an ingredient and then there are a bunch of recipes for you to use that ingredient. We're going to be making one of the ingredients today, one of the recipes that is then used in a bunch of other recipes. We're going to be making what she calls Herbdacious. This is a lot like pesto, except well, there are a few different changes. There are no nuts. We're going to use a lot of garlic, but we're going to make garlic confit. And we add a few other herbs to this. It's not just basil. So the first thing we have to do is to make the garlic confit. And that is an ingredient all by itself. You could stop there and do that. But we're going to continue with the Herbdacious because it's mid-August and our basil is going crazy, so we're even gonna have to make some more pesto after this or something else. Maybe dry some, I don't know. We've got a ton of basil and pretty soon it's gonna be not really useful because it'll start bolting and going to seed. So this is a lot of garlic and I'm putting it in this my smallest saucepan that I've already measured some extra virgin olive oil in. These are peeled. She has a whole sort of section on pre-peeled garlic and how she never will use the pre-diced garlic that you can buy in jars, but she does sometimes use pre-peeled garlic and probably has some in her refrigerator right now. I generally don't. She says it tastes different, but my philosophy is if that is what is keeping you from cooking, having to peel garlic, use the pre-peeled garlic. It won't taste exactly the same, but it'll probably still be delicious. So we are going to put this on low heat to bring it to a simmer. She says very low heat. I'm gonna start sort of medium low, but if it starts to sizzle and boil, you should sort of cool it down, but take it off, cool it down before you put it back on. And what we're looking for is a poached garlic. She says it'll take as long as 20 minutes if you keep the heat low. We'll see how long it takes for us. In the end, the garlic should be soft and just slightly browned. You certainly don't want to burn it. I did use whole heads of garlic. I tried the bowl trick. If you're on the internet at all and you cook, you've probably seen that, where you put the cloves of garlic in between two bowls and shake it up. I decided to finally try that. Not sure. It took a long time. It took a lot of shakes. And then basically eventually I would shake it and take a few of the cloves out and shake it again and take a few of the cloves out because they would be peeled. So now we're gonna put this on medium-low heat and we'll see you back in about 20 minutes, I guess, because that's how long this is gonna take. And I'm gonna set up the blender because that's what we need after this. So we'll see you in about 20 minutes. I might take a little shot of just the oil and so you see what it looks like when it's simmering, but we'll show you what it looks like when it's done for sure. Be right back. All right, so this I think is kind of what she means by a simmer. I don't know if you can see, but there are a few little bubbles. I'm going to turn it down a little bit because I think it's gonna get a little bit too warm like this. I think it's going a little bit too much. So that only took maybe 5 minutes to come up to this, but we'll see what it looks like when it's done. So this is about 10, 12 minutes in. Doesn't look anywhere near done, but this is where I've landed on where I think it should be. And my heat is at 1.6 on my stove, so that's pretty low. It's not quite as low as it'll go, but it's not sizzling. It's not popping, it's not really boiling, so I think this is kind of where it should be, and we'll see how much longer it takes. My garlic took probably closer to 30 minutes from when I put it on the stove. At about 20 minutes, the smaller cloves were soft, but the bigger ones were not quite there yet. And you can kind of see they've turned a little bit brown. They're in the oil. And these you can use separately. Put them in anything. The garlic is mellowed. You could put it on toast. Be delicious. It's all spreadable. Anyway, but now we're gonna make the Herbdacious with it. So we're putting everything in, she says, the most powerful blender you have. For me, that is this one. Anyway, so we're gonna just put all of our ingredients, and I'll talk about them all as we go. So this is the garlic confit. Trying to get as much oil out as I can. There we go. And that is at room temperature. So I let it sit on my cold countertops for a while, and it's pretty much chilled because you don't want to cook these herbs. And now we're going to put, this is basil. These were packed, but it unpacks into a lot more. Mostly just the leaves, but you can use the tender stems, so you don't have to worry too much about getting all the stems out unless they're really woody. And then we have, I think, yeah, this is parsley. This is Italian parsley. There's a lot less of it. Maybe it's 1 part parsley to 4 parts basil. And then this is cilantro. You can choose dill, mint, chervil, or cilantro. I chose cilantro because we love it. I've had no luck growing these. So while the basil is from my garden, and oh my gosh, it's going crazy. The parsley and the cilantro are just from the grocery store. So these are scallions, roughly chopped, just the green parts. There we go. Mine are just kind of sliced because I sliced up all the ones I had and put the white parts in the refrigerator for something else later. We have some microplane grated Parmigiano Reggiano, she says. So I don't know if that's exactly what I had, but it's some sort of decent Parmesan. We need some fresh lemon juice. This is the only thing I haven't pre-measured. So there we go. And then we have the grated zest of 2 lemons. I just used the same microplane right after I grated the cheese because it was all going in the same place. So if there was a little cheese in there, it didn't matter. So there we go. And some salt. This is kosher salt. For me, I use Diamond Crystal, which is not super dense, but we'll see. And we're just going to, she says, let it rip. There we go. Until you have, until the mixture is smooth and green. So you probably won't see this whole part, but we're just going to, I'm going to hit puree. I assume that's right. Or maybe blend. I'll go with puree. All right. I'm just going to scrape down the sides with my spatula because I've got a few things that just aren't getting down into the mixture. And I just want to get those also to be smooth and green and not just chunks. I went with blend the second time. It seemed to go have a little bit more power. Let's see. That might be as smooth as we're gonna get for this, but I'm gonna just hit it one more time just to see if we can get it any better. I still see little bits of herbs in there, but I'm sure that'll be fine. This is the best my blender can do. It's the best my blender can do. Oh, that's the thing. Okay, we're gonna call this done, and I will show you what it looks like after I get it all out of here and tell you what we think about it in just a minute. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make Herbdacious from Vivian Howard's newer cookbook, This Will Make It Taste Good. So it is still pretty much the height of the season. We're getting a lot of produce coming in. It's coming to an end, but we have tons of basil, which is why we decided to make this. It's a little bit like a pesto and a little bit like a chimichurri partially because we chose to use cilantro as one of the other herbs in this. We used parsley, which is one of the things she always has you use, but then we also used cilantro. You could also choose dill, mint, chervil, or cilantro for that. But we chose cilantro, which is, it's still mostly basil, because basil is a very strong flavor, but the cilantro did come through. And so we've had it, we served it as sort of a topper, a dipper for some steak, kind of like you would a chimichurri, and it went really well with that. And I also added it to a corn salad. So in the summer, quite often I will make with either leftover corn or grilled corn, cut it off the cob and make a corn salad with some onions, tomatoes, avocado, and usually some herbs. And so what I did here is I threw some of the Herbdacious in there to give it that herb flavor. That was delicious. So you could basically use this any sort of way that you would usually use basil. And there are 12 different sort of no-brainers that aren't recipes, but you could use this in. There are some other actual recipes you could use this in, which I might need to make. In fact, I think I was planning on doing the meatloaf. There's a meatloaf recipe in here. And there's also like a Chex mix, she calls chef mix, where you use this. So what I think I plan to do is to freeze what I have left over in the amounts that I need for these recipes and sort of put those in my freezer labeled for the recipe so that we can make this in the winter when we don't have access to fresh basil quite as easily. The fresh basil there's not a whole lot in here. It's not quite as much as you would use in a pesto. So it's something you could more easily make in the winter because you can get all of these herbs in the grocery store in the winter. It's just really hard to get enough fresh basil in the winter. Right now we have tons of it outside that we still need to figure out how to use up before it all goes to seed. So we're doing a lot with that right now. So that's what I'm planning to do. You can freeze it just like you would freeze pesto, which we did show you previously in another video from, I think it was Ashley Christensen's. It's always freezer season. So you could do it that way. You could do it in ice cube trays, and then you just have a little bit of basil. So if you can add it to your tomato sauce or defrost it and put it in your pasta or whatever. So I would definitely make this again. And it lasts a long time in your refrigerator too, so you don't have to make it and immediately use it. She says, I think it can last up to 2 weeks in your refrigerator, your freezer for about 3 months. You can always freeze things usually longer than that, but that's sort of and you know, cover your bases kind of timeline. But anyway, so we really enjoyed it. I enjoy having it in my refrigerator. I'll have to try to remember to use it once I put it in the freezer, which I need to do. But if you enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come back and watch me make something else next week.